I'm here with Brandon Johnson. Brandon, we were both in Rockwall today. I saw, and I know you got there a little bit late, but it was incredible what I saw in the court. First off, I want to say, because I know you missed part of it, Judge Rockwall, he actually seemed like a fair judge. Now, the one thing I would say is that from how he was different from the other judges, he was not wearing his black robe. I used to think that the black robe would give these judges like this wisdom from on high, you know, and I'm thinking that maybe the black robe kind of takes away their humanity. So maybe one of the things we ought to be advocating for is for all these judges to be divested of their black robes, because I mean they're kind of like temple priests at that point, and there are some people that wear black robes that are involved in certain types of rituals that I'd rather not get into. But I mean maybe that's something good we ought to look at. And anyway, but you know, a couple of things that I saw, my observations. I was amazed once again that divorces take about 2 minutes and 30 seconds to 3 minutes. And on 2 of the divorces, there was one person that was there and read off. There was one lady, I mean, she read all of the magic phrases. She used irreconcilable differences. She used insupportability. She used, we need to have child support for the best interest of the child. She used, I lived in Texas for 6 months and in Rockwall for the last time. Everything. There was nothing judicial about it. The man was not there. Evidently he had signed the paperwork. She claimed that her marriage was insupportable. The judge didn't say, so you say that your marriage is insupportable. What proof can you offer? There was no judicial.
It was all administrative.
It was all administrative.
And the reason that that's important, I have spoken with family law attorneys about this. And I do not believe, we know that separation of powers is really just it's a concept that's not actually a practice anymore. It's touched on in school,
right?
Briefly,
right.
But these attorneys are not taught. They're actually taught, and this came straight from a family law attorney, that they're all supposed to work together.
Yeah.
And that is an absolute fallacy, because each is supposed to be a check and balance on the other. We see this in these family courts, and this dates back to the Roosevelt administration. There was that's when administrative law became in the practice, and we won't get down in those details,
right.
but essentially that's where this collusion began to take place through the administrative law. That the judiciary branch is supposed to use this fabled discretion that the legislature has given wide latitude, or what is actually termed in Supreme Court cases as unbridled discretion.
Yeah.
That is, you know, from time to time abusive.
From time to time?
or perhaps
more than time to time.
In practice is daily.
Okay.
But essentially, the judiciary has, through these administrative processes, it appears judicial.
Yeah.
The stage is set to appear judicial. However, the judiciary is violating a separation of powers doctrine.
Absolutely.
By carrying out the administrative duty. Administrative duty is the executive branch. And this hearing that you and I attended today was an enforcement hearing for an administrative contract. Actually, it's an administrative contract with the child support enforcement. That a judicial order was put in place unilaterally, as you like to say, unilaterally, one side. This individual, he did not sign the order or agreement. Both Minnesota and Massachusetts have found, the Supreme Courts in both of those states have found that child support enforcement, or the Title 4D scheme, as Blessings Freestone it describes it, it's a scheme laid out by the Supreme Court. It violates the separation of powers doctrine. And yet the state of Texas, as you well know, violates due process, because once you go down the administrative road, all the judge does is he check boxes.
Right.
That's why it only takes 2.5 minutes to get a divorce.
Right.
He's checking the boxes. That seance, these are seances that are used.
Yes.
What? In supportability. Best interest of the child. Lived in the state for so long.
Oh, absolutely.
There is nothing judicial about
Right.
this taking place.
Right.
And so through this, now I want to clarify, the due process that you're getting through this administrative process is called procedural due process.
Yes.
It is not fundamental due process
substantive.
or substantive.
Yes.
Substantive, thank you. I say fundamental because it's substantive due process protects fundamental rights. And I mean, if you want me to keep going, I can tell you that Ken Paxton, the enforcer of these administrative child support laws, has actually come out and said, no, parents have a fundamental liberty interest
Right.
that demands clear and convincing evidence under a strict scrutiny standard via the Troxel versus Granville Supreme Court case 2000. Yet these family courts do not allow you to, they laugh at you
Yeah.
when you bring up constitutional protections.
So that's just to bring reference to that. Attorney General Paxton wrote that opinion February 22nd, 2019. It's less than a year old. KP-0241, KP-0241. I thought he did a tremendous job with it.
Yes.
In asserting the, as you were talking about, the fundamental rights that of the parent-child relationship. But I want to go back to something that you mentioned as far, and we talked about the seance, you know, the lady gets up there and she reads her list. And I mean, you can see almost the psychic atmosphere going on, the clouds and the smoke coming up here. But last night I was talking with a judge, and the way because I was talking about the issue of unilateral no-fault divorce, divorce on demand, divorce for any reason, divorce for no reason, divorce for made-up reason, forced divorce, imposed divorce, whatever you want to call it. The same thing that Vladimir Lenin put upon Bolshevik Russia. That's what we have in the state of Texas right now. But anyway, I was talking about this issue about unilateral no-fault divorce, how it violates the Constitution. Now, he himself had not been in family law, so he said he makes some interesting points. You know, he wants me to be in correspondence with him because he's very interested about this whole thing. But prior to this, he actually brought up the issue of no-fault divorce, and he talks about how you go in front of a judge and you say the magic words. So when I think about magic words, I think, you know, how the magicians in the past used to, you know, put something over their hat and abracadabra, and whoop, you know, whoop, either something disappeared or, you know, maybe you abracadabra, whoop, here comes a rabbit out of the hat. And that's what these courts are doing. And there is nothing judicial about it. It's like you said, it's like a seance. When you enter the courtroom, it's kind of like you're entering the temple. I mean, you have certain formalities, and you get searched. You know, it's almost like you're practically stripped down naked. Not quite, but you know what I'm saying. You've got to go through all of these things, and you're entering the hushed courtroom. Even though there was more noise, there was a hushed courtroom. And there's the bailiff there with his gun and stuff like that, making sure nothing gets out of control. And you've got the attorneys, and the attorneys are acting all important. Today I saw the attorneys and I thought, you know, these guys, this is such a charade. It's kind of like looking at the clown show in a sense. They're acting so seriously, but really in the back of their mind they're thinking money, 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 money. Because I'm here in person, and this is actually more when I'm here in person versus talking over the phone or having my administrative assistant help out. Or maybe I'm even going to bring my administrative assistant in with me so I can charge for me and her. And you know what, you know, and also travel time, of course, too. And we have to act very serious about this. And here's what I saw, Brandon, because in these divorces that took 3 minutes each, there were no attorneys. They just went up there and they, you know, the one lady, there was a black lady up there, and she talked about something. Now, her husband wasn't there. But evidently, you know, she swore that what she was saying was the truth. There's no evidence that she had the truth, but she was saying she told the truth. Is that your husband's signature? Yes, it is. Oh, okay, well, that's nice. I accept that. Divorce granted. And then, you know, check out. Before you check out of the temple, make sure you pay your dues, which means go to the administrative assistant over there.
Is that like a tithe?
Well, I don't know. It's more than a tithe, probably. But anyway, you've got to go and make sure that all the paperwork is right. Kind of like filling something out for the IRS. Make sure the paperwork is right, because if we don't have the paperwork right, you may not even be divorced. You know, we have to come back in and fix the paperwork. But so it's all an administrative function. But like I said, the one lady, the black lady, she goes and does all of this stuff, and I'm watching, you know, because as soon as she was done, she goes over to the desk where there's the administrative secretary, and they're doing this. And then the next lady comes up, and this was a white, perhaps Hispanic lady, I couldn't quite tell for sure. But she's up there and she's reading her list, and I'm thinking to myself, boy, she has all of the magic words. That's not just abracadabra, it's for the Christians who pray in Jesus' name. It's in Jesus' name we're getting, you know, so we know what's going to be granted. I mean, all of these crazy things that are, you know, like Allahu Akbar, or, you know, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, all of these things are all together in one little reading of this lady. And I mean, you could see that the eyes of the people are glazing over. Yes, it is going to happen. She will get her divorce in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And then, of course, she also used the phrase, the best interest of the child. It is in the best interest of the child that he pay child support. Divorce granted. Because we have to make sure we have that child support order, and it's always in the best interest of the child. And then, you know, before you check out, make sure you see the administrative clerk over here so you can sign all the paperwork. And then the next people came up. Now, this was actually a husband and wife together, and evidently they had some type of agreement in place, so they went up there and they went through the whole routine and stuff like that. They didn't really speak up very loudly. But anyway, once again, you know, the first thing I thought about them as well, you know, at least they saved a lot of money, because they had an attorney there, because the attorney thought you must have an attorney to represent you on these things. I mean, it would have probably cost them $5,000 or something like that, or $10,000, who knows what. But because the attorneys don't work for free, but the attorneys want to keep it cheap for you. But you can't do it by yourself. But, you know, so here, 10 minutes, 3 divorces. Bang, bang, bang. And the judge just signed up, divorce granted. Wait a minute. Then there was another, it was a workers' compensation issue or something like that. And I was watching it, I couldn't quite hear all the details, but this was lasting about 10 minutes, 12 minutes, something like that. And I think the guy won. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, you know, during the course of him in front of the judge, we could have had 3 more divorces. I mean, what's going on in this court? It's all a charade. There is nothing judicial about it. But the attorneys would like to keep that illusion up so that they can rake you for money. But I know that's a general commentary on the procedure ahead of time. But we were actually there. You might want to say something, but we want to talk about our friend Mark. And Mark, by the way, is here with us, and he's off camera. Mark is a pseudonym because we're actually protecting him at this point right now. But anyway, Mark may be able to chime in at different times. So is there anything you want to add before we get to Mark?
The only thing I'd like to add after you've gotten into this this dialogue about the
fraud, charade, circus,
this court circus, is there was a point in time in our nation's history where government was scum. You know, it was like to be kept in this small cage. Yeah. And it was like you keep a sharp eye on them, and you know when you go in, you take the pitchfork to make sure that they're in their rightful place.
Right.
Okay. In fact, I read a book over the holiday. Had my kids. I went to see my dad, and I'm reading this book where back in the even up into the 1930s, early 1900s, when there was a court case going on, the whole town would flock to watch this thing. You know, in old westerns, you'll see these hangings, and everybody's gathered around with the kids. All right, let's watch this guy die. So,
well, you know what? They really ought to, because literally that's what's taking place in family
So
courts.
that's what I'm saying. So now what we've allowed to happen is, since the 60s, since Lyndon Johnson, he took the Bible out of the school, out of the schools, and Christianity has been shunned from the public square, because we got to keep a separation of church and state. Really? Okay. Whether I'm Christian or not, let's go along with it, right?
Okay.
So if we take that stance, well, what's going to replace it? Well, the government. These fancy courthouses. And instead of having sanctity for these religious institutions, now we have swapped the role.
Yes.
And now there's all this dignity and honor we're supposed to pay these scumbags who were instituted to protect us, and now they're plundering us. Just like our forefathers knew that was a tyranny that they're breaking from. And now you've been to my court case, you've been to Mark's court case, and many hundreds
others,
and many others.
And it's the same script each time.
And it's the same exact script. You're like, hold on, let me direct it this time, Judge. Can I want to direct this little play,
I know.
And like you say, now nobody knows. It's like this voodoo temple that only
voodoo is exactly right.
That only
voodoo justice.
The people tapped with a divorce paperwork that's real scary and stuff. They go in there and they have no idea what's going on. Like our friend Mark, so I guess we can talk about that. But I just wanted to really point out that the state, and I'm going to make one more point on this, the state has now taken the place of the church as a religious institution.
And it's an it's a religious institution, but it's also
a secular fundamentalist institution. And so what they've said is, see, everybody thinks, especially from a Christian perspective, that you're getting in a union between the man, the woman, and the God. Okay, we're gonna have this Trinity. And everybody,
every marriage has every successful marriage, the man, the woman, and God. That's what a lot of the churches teach. That there's three people.
They teach that, but what they don't teach is the fact that now the government, who's supposed to have this sanctity of separation of church and state, and I know I'm going off a little tangent here, but I think this is critical. Because you go before your priest to get married. But we're supposed to have this separation of church and state, and so they don't really explain to you when you go to the county clerk and you purchase a marriage license. That marriage license has essentially put the government and put Ken Paxton, now you're in a three-way relationship with whoever the Attorney General is of your state and the other party. And now that is a contract. That is a legally binding contract. And so everybody goes into these courthouses seeking justice and thinking they're going before some court of law, but they're not. They're going into a contract where they're the one getting kicked out of the contract against their will.
And if I only tell the truth, the judge will listen to me. The judge will see things from my perspective, says every single naive person who goes in there who actually believes that the courts are designed to look at the truth and to make a proper ruling. It is not a court of justice. If you're looking for any type of justice or integrity, or I know that people say, well, it's a court of equity, so we can be inequitable in our equity.
And fair and just and equitable in the separation of the division of property and rights and the time you get with your children.